Hi everybody, I'm here to talk about one of the greatest musicians that ever lived, Mr. Allan Holdsworth, and I've got 10 minutes to do it, so there'll be edits. If I just try and do it free form, I'll go off on a tangent and talk about Allan for 8 hours, so here goes. When I first started to play, I was pretty much teaching myself, so it was a natural thing to be a legato player. I don't know why, I just naturally gravitated towards that approach, and I guess all along I thought, I hope I'm not getting this wrong and doing it wrong and stuffing it up. And so I just went with that, and I thought I was going pretty good. This was probably about 4 years of playing under my belt, and my friends and I had been doing gigs, and people were giving me a lot of encouragement for the direction I was heading in. And then I used to read Guitar Player magazine back then, and being a young impressionable lad of about 16 or 17, everything I read in those pages was like the gospel to me. And I read a Frank Zappa interview. I was a big fan of Frank's, and he made some sort of disparaging remarks about his own playing, to the effect that he didn't consider himself a really great guitar player technically because he didn't pick every note. And he said that he would pick one note with his right hand and do hammer-ons with the left hand. And I went, oh my God, that's what I'm doing. And of course what I read into that was, I've got it wrong, I've stuffed it up, I've gone and done it wrong, I'm a fraud. And once people find out, I'll be tarred and feathered and run out of town on a rail. And this was pretty bad, because I picked up the guitar and I tried to pick every note, and of course the results were disastrous, pretty much like they are today. And so through reading an Eddie Van Halen interview, another hero, he talked about his hero, Allan Holdsworth. I did manage to find the UK album through an import store, and the minute I listened to the In the Dead of Night solo, I recognised that legato sound. I recognised the flowing sound of it. And not only did I sort of think, well, that's great. If Allan's doing it, then I guess you can just do whatever you want. You should follow your own path. There are no rules. And I just loved everything Allan was playing. So not only did I like the sound, not only did it encourage me to keep going in the direction I was going in, I just found this incredible source of great musicianship. And I had no idea that it was going to continue for many, many decades to come. Upon hearing Allan and really getting familiar with his sound and his approach, my primitive brain couldn't really decipher anything that he was doing beyond the flowing sound and the nature of what he was playing. And the way I interpreted that was just to use chromaticism. So I just sort of do that sort of approach. That was as far as I could incorporate it into my playing, and I thought, oh well, near enough. I'll work with that for a while. And I did manage to track down a few interviews, and he talked about 4-note per string scales, and he didn't really give many more details than that. But I thought, okay, well, I guess this chromatic approach I'm applying, I guess he means play scales in that manner. And so I started to experiment with the usual thing, and I just started with a major scale and did that, and the reverse direction of it. And I was practicing that for a while and trying to come up with a system for it, like trying to memorize the fret distances and, it's half step, whole step here, and systemize it and make it into the same sort of grid lick patterns that I'd been doing before. And I later on found some other interviews of Allan where he said that was what he was trying to avoid by using this approach. And the more I thought about it, I thought, well, if I just get that down as a lick going up and down the scale, I thought, how much could I use that in the course of a gig? And the answer is not much. So I thought the real value of this is to allow you to get more movement around the guitar. And I thought the only way to really capitalize on it and be free with it in the way Allan was describing that he was going was to just learn the fretboard and get better at understanding the neck, as opposed to 3-note per string scales or conventional box patterns that I'd learned. luckily I hadn't learned many of those things anyway. Like I said, being self-taught, it's all a bit trial and error, so I got off on this approach. And the other thing Allan remarked on, which was valuable information, was trying not to play too many notes in a consecutive direction, like too many notes going up or down. And I found that when I was applying the chromaticism, that it tended to have this just roller coaster approach, and there wasn't much melodic contour with it. So I was trying to sort of consciously, so trying to jumble things around. What I got from the chord thing was I'd never heard anyone use intervals like those sort of close seconds and things like that, and major sevens played with the root still on the top, and all these amazing voicings. And so I guess I instinctively took it in the direction that he really was talking about, which I didn't even know about until I saw his instructional video years later, where he said he would try to incorporate the notes of scales into his chord playing as opposed to being just a static chord voicing. And I sort of experimented with that, and in my primitive sort of rock pop way, I really love the way Allan used the ambient delays to create those incredible synth-like pads. About 1991, I got a Digitech unit called the IPS-33B, which was a harmonizer delay unit, and I was using that to do this particular effect. But the one thing that was unique about that unit, and it was really easy to program, was you could program the delays to actually hit. You could program, program an expression pedal to control the input send to the unit. So I ended up having a volume pedal and an expression pedal hooked up to the unit. So if the expression pedal was down, so the delays were happening, you could do your Allan the sound we all know and love from Allan's beautiful volume pedal work. But the cool thing about having the expression pedal hooked up to the input was when the pedal was down, no delays, but when the pedal was depressed, or when you pushed it down, then the delays happened. So you could do things like hit a chord, so you could actually introduce the attack to the note. I would often use it with the distorted sound as well, so you could get that full David Gilmour effect for the... So, very dramatic. Once again, thank you, Allan. As far as Allan's own music goes, I was always frustrated when I'd hear about A&R people at record companies saying that only musicians get this music, insinuating you had to be an intelligent enough musician to understand what was going on to even enjoy it, and which is total rubbish. I mean, you know, I don't understand anything Allan's doing at any kind of technical level. I just love the music. It always related to me emotionally. The amount of emotion that he has in his playing, it might as well be a blues record as far as I'm concerned. And I've never heard such empathy and melancholy wrapped up so beautifully in just astounding melodies and completely unique sounds and a unique approach. And the legacy he leaves behind is absolutely vast, monstrous. And you consider, like, I really do believe he could have stopped at about the Secrets album and pretty much never recorded another thing, and just gone, well, that'll keep him busy for a few years, you know. And he instead he went on to just go above and beyond what he'd already done and push forward with the syntax and all sorts of things. I mean, just a musical genius, in expanding the equipment we use, and absolutely uncompromising in his artistic beliefs and his integrity. If anyone should have ever been given a government grant just to write and record music, it was Allan Holdsworth. And the other scary thing is he was never satisfied, because he was obviously hearing something up here that he couldn't play, that he couldn't express yet. And considering what he'd already expressed and we have to listen to was decades beyond what anyone else is really capable of doing, you can only imagine what he must have been hearing that was keeping him up at night. So I have no idea where you would go in the universe to hear that kind of music, but you'd probably need an Atavachron to get there. Love you, Allan.